Hello everybody and welcome to the Whiskey Dictionary. Today I want to talk to you about a brand new whiskey. This is Little Book. Now this is the second chapter of Little Book. Similar to the way that Booker's does batches, Little Book tends to do one chapter every year. And so this is the second year and it's called No Simple Task. Now this is not a bourbon like you would expect from Booker's. This is actually an American straight whiskey. So it's American blended straight whiskey. And it's a blend of several different things. We'll get into that in a minute. But something to know, because I haven't covered Little Book before. I didn't cover the first one, mostly because I always kind of looked at it on the shelf. It was always right next to the regular Booker's, and I would typically just be looking for specific batches, and I would see that and just say, yeah, maybe next time, and I never bought it. And because of that, I'm probably not going to go back, not going to go buy the number one. It is available in a couple of places near me, but I'd rather look towards the future, and that's kind of where this is going. So Freddie Noe, he's the 8th generation distiller at Jim Beam, and he is the grandson of Booker Noe. And he decided to kind of spread his wings and do his own thing, and he went up to Canada, of all places, to try a bunch of different whiskeys. Now here's the thing about Canadian whiskey. The Canadians keep their good stuff up in Canada, and they don't send all of it down here for us, unfortunately, to try. And now we do the same thing to them. We don't send all of our bourbons up there. Some of our really, really good bourbons never make it up to Canada unless they specifically ship it. So, you know, I guess it goes both ways. But either way, Freddie Noe went into Canada and he tried a bunch of really nice whiskeys, and he kind of really liked them. And he decided to pay homage by doing his own blend that would kind of imitate some of the flavor profiles that he really liked and form a blend of them, which cool concept. So he ended up making 40 different blends, and of those 40 he picked number 29 to be what this is, and it's a 8-year-old Kentucky straight rye, it's a 13-year-old Canadian rye, and it's a 40-year-old 100% corn whiskey from Canada. And this ended up, kind of being the one that he wanted to go with for his second installment. So let's go ahead and give this a nosing and a tasting. Now you might notice, once again, this is a sample. I'm sure you may or may not have seen a couple weeks ago where I talked about getting the Booker's 2018-02 from the company, and they said, hey, we'll include something else for you as well. So that's what this is. So I did get this from the company, but as always, my opinions are my own. All right, let's go ahead and give this a nose and a taste. Now there is a lot reminiscent of Canadian whiskey when you nose and taste this, for sure. The number one thing that you're kind of getting is just a very heavy caramel from the nose, and you'll get that in a lot of Canadian whiskeys for sure. There's a little bit of smoke kind of right in the middle, so like it's like caramel and then caramel, and then it's smoke. Somebody called me out the other day for saying caramel, and I tend to say both pretty much equally, but somebody called me out, and now every time I say caramel, I think about it. Anyway, so caramel, and then you've got smoke, and then kind of like cloves, actually. If you've ever had that, like it's a spice that you can cook with. That's a little bit in the nose as well. That's about it, though, as far as I can tell. Let's go ahead and give this a taste. Cheers. Now this is where this gets interesting. Forgive me as I look for a sec, because I forget the ABV. This is 118.8 proof, so half that for the ABV. And it's very sweet. The initial impression is extremely sweet, and then it actually builds as it sits in your mouth for a little bit, which I guess if you hold any high ABV liquid in your mouth for a bit, you're gonna feel the sting, but this is after I drank it. It's kind of got a very long finish to it, if you want to consider it that, and it grows in complexity as it sits in your mouth. So it's very sweet, as I said. It's got some butterscotch to it. Oddly enough, in the finish, I'm picking up coconut and almond, which is a combination I don't think I've ever gotten before. A lot of new ones this year with the Jim Beam special releases, for sure. All right, so overall, here's the deal. This is a $100 whiskey. It's not a bourbon. This is a $100 American blended whiskey. That is going to be a mental barrier for a lot of people, or a financial barrier, either way. But if you're living in the US and you go out to buy a bottle of whiskey that isn't a Scotch or something, spending $100 is not something that you expect. And I can tell you for a fact, when I saw the little book next to the other Booker's, and this is where I was going before, I often would overlook the little book, the chapter 1, because it was $100. And I was just like, I don't know anything about this. I don't know if it's going to be great. You know, when I'm doing these reviews, I got to be smart with the money because, you know, there's a lot of bottles and these things aren't cheap. So anyway, I would often overlook it because it's $100. So now that I've tried this, I'm feeling a little bad that I didn't, because this is a very, very good whiskey. The problem is always going to be the price. So in my opinion, you need to think about whether, let's put it this way, a good bourbon is going to be like 50 bucks, right? Like pretty good, higher than middle tier, but not like out of control, you know, but like $50 pretty reasonable for a bourbon. I think most of you would spend that. You need to decide whether trying this whiskey is worth not trying 2 bourbons that you've never had before, or American whiskeys. And in my opinion, now that I've tasted it, my answer would be yes. But prior to tasting it, that's a tough thing to bring myself to do. I think what I would suggest to you is if you would typically spend $100 on a scotch without really thinking too much about it, go with this, because it's unique and it's interesting and it's tasty. And when you add a little bit of water to it, you get even some more complexities out of there as well. But I think you've got your answer. If you would normally spend $100 on a scotch, give this a shot. If you wouldn't, once again, there's your answer. So thank you for joining me here on the Whiskey Dictionary, and I hope to see you next time. Cheers.